quickly, I wanted to recap here just so people understand, because I'm going to be talking about how the U.S. government measures diversity. This is important because of how they classify white people, okay? A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa, okay? A person having origins in the people, they shouldn't really people is already pluralized. I don't know why they always do that. It makes it sound smart, I guess. Of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. So, what people don't understand is when they're saying that the country is whatever percent white, it's not really, because within that, you have a lot of people that do not identify as white, okay, such as Middle Easterners, North Africans, etc. This is by design in the fact that they think that these people are going to mindlessly vote Democrat. That has been backfiring as of late. What really turned these people away from the pro-democratic concept, or not even the pro-democratic concept, they are voting Democrat, but you see the Democratic Party shifting to a more centrist party, particularly in the local areas like in Michigan, where these people have had enough of the forced homosexuality. Now, I watched a video where a guy went around interviewing individuals, and it's not so much that they had a problem with people being homosexual. Their problem was the fact that it's being forced on kids, which is most people's problems. Or a problem with it. I don't know anybody, including myself, that has a problem with anybody being gay, trans, whatever. The problem only becomes a problem when you're going into middle schools, elementary schools, and even high schools and saying, you might be gay, and here's some literature to help you find out how you're gay and all this stuff. Okay? What's funny is, I'm perfectly fine with school assemblies or shit, even like in health class, telling people, don't be mean to somebody because they're different from you. Don't be mean to somebody because they have different sexual proclivities than you, etc. I'd be fine with that, but I'm not fine with people saying, hey, you might want to whack your junk off. Okay, and that seems to be where actually a lot of the Muslim community stands too. Everybody's now trying to make it look like they're ferociously anti-homosexual and all this stuff. It didn't really seem like that to me. It seemed like they're really moderately conservative people that just don't want their kids having their heads filled with nonsense, and thankfully they got the forced gay pride flag off of public land, off of, like the mayor's mansion and shit like that, which it should never have been there, okay? That is not, that is an ideology, that is not a thing. And in my opinion, you shouldn't be having gay pride crap anywhere any more than you should be having white pride crap, or black pride crap, or Hispanic pride crap, or Asian pride crap, because the government is not supposed to favor any one group over any other group. Of course it does, and that's why you have menorahs on the White House lawn and things of that nature moving forward. So as I said, you will see here that, how they're saying, the government wants to pretend like it has no dog in the fight when it comes to racial diversity. Well, it does. It wants to forcibly diversify the communities, and people might be going, well, you're saying that you want post-racial eugenics and all this stuff, and you don't agree with keeping the races separate. Or I agree with the organic mixture of people, okay? I don't think that should be forced either. You can't force people to do things. This is what happened with the Soviet. Okay, so what my point is here is you see the U.S. government taking a page out of the Soviet government's playbook. So no matter what, you are not going to break people of their biological heritage, okay? People are the people that they are, okay? So what the Soviet Union did is it took people from all over the Soviet Union, like Kazakhs and Mongols and whatever, and put them into places like the Ukraine and whatever, not so much in Moscow, but because they didn't want to, they didn't want to diversify their own area. But what you did see is you saw a lot of forced demography shifting in order to break up the ethnic diversity. It was literally, whenever you see something that says pro-diversity, it's really anti-diversity in the sense that it wants to eliminate diversity. It wants to eliminate differences. So this is about how they're exploring diversity, defining diversity to measure the racial and ethnic diversity. So obviously you can be Hispanic, white alone, or non-Hispanic. Now remember, this is also important because this comes in crime statistics, okay? So what is being included in white alone, non-Hispanic are Arabs, North Africans, and even Native Americans without tribal affiliation. Keep that in mind. Okay, so when people are being processed and you see these national databases of crime, when you see people like Jared Taylor and other people, those people are all included under white alone non-Hispanic, including Hispanics that don't identify as Hispanic. Okay, and that's an issue. And you see, and also in most censuses, in most crime censuses anyway, there might not be an identifying thing for Hispanic because it's an ethnicity. So the diversity index tells us how likely two people chosen at random will be from different race and ethnicity groups. Okay, diversity index by state. So you will see the most diverse states, let's see here, so 65 to more. Okay, so the most diverse states are in dark green. So you'll see that where I'm at in Pennsylvania is pretty dark in the green area, especially where I'm at in the southeast. For the adult population, 6 states had a diversity index of 65% or more. These are the extremely diverse areas. Hawaii, California, Nevada, Washington, D.C. Now, what's funny is California is a majority Hispanic state. Okay, keep that in mind. Nevada, Washington, D.C., a state equivalent 66.7%, Texas at 66.5%. Now, what's funny is Texas is flipping to a blue state now. So we know why they want these demography shifts. I did a video series called Demography Matters. People might remember that. And demography does matter. And people might wonder, well, if demography matters, why have you been promoting, since you founded this channel, the concepts of Jose Vasconcelos and the, the cosmic race? So Puerto Rico, which is not a state, that is very non-diverse because it's almost entirely what they would consider white, but it's not because they're Latino. And what's funny is Puerto Rico is actually more diverse than you think because you have more Puerto Ricans more so on the black side, Puerto Ricans more so on the white side, Puerto Ricans that are straight up Tiano, but they're saying they're all the same. So they're already screwing up their own diversity tracking. Anybody that knows a bunch of people from Puerto Rico knows that Puerto Ricans come in, in many shades of Puerto Rican. Areas with higher racial and ethnic diversity for both the younger and older populations appeared to be concentrated in the west, south, and northeast regions. Prevalence, ranking, and diffusion. Now, what you have to understand is New York, which let me see where that ranks. Yeah, New York is, extremely diverse. Anybody that's been to New York can see where forced diversity gets a place, okay? It's not usually a good place. I'm not saying that you need to forcibly diversify anybody. I think people should have the right, the inalienable right, to associate with whoever they want. It's called freedom of association. It's protected, I believe, under international law. I'm not sure on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. Nationally, the three most prevalent groups were the same for the total under 18 and 18 and over populations. Now remember, white alone non-Hispanic includes Arabs, North Africans, Persians. Okay, so these are people that do not identify as what? They don't identify as white, but they are being included under white. Keep that in mind. Not to mention, this is all self-reporting anyway. The Hispanic or Latino population was the second most prevalent race or ethnic group. So keep this in mind. The Hispanic or Latino population was the second most prevalent group in the United States. Black or African American alone non-Hispanic population was the third most prevalent race or ethnic group. Now, as you see the Hispanic and white populations intermingle more, you're going to see a difference in political attitudes. And I think what you're going to see, whether you want to believe it or not, is a shift towards more social conservatism. These people are not going to be putting up with a lot of the bullshit coming out of the government. Okay? They're also not going to put up with people robbing them of their money and sending it to places like Israel where they don't care about, all that hocus pocus about, what happened during World War II and all that crap. It doesn't affect them. They don't have any connection to that crap. Whereas a lot of people from the World War II generation, for whatever reason, and I still don't understand this, being that, the United States fought in that war. It's kind of like the North, and I've never understood this either, okay? So, Northerners feel really, 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 really bad about slavery. Makes no sense to me. The North are the ones that waged war on the South to liberate the Southerners. What the North should feel bad about is their campaign of total war against their fellow Americans, where they did things like people know about Atlanta, I assume, where they burn it to the ground and they put people in barns and set the, white Americans into barns and set the barns on fire, women and children and stuff like that. There was a severe dehumanization of the Southerner under the Northern campaign of total war against the South. That's, in my opinion, what they should feel bad about. And the same thing happened in World War II, where people who believe the generic line, but the thing is, it was the United States, the Soviet Union, Great Britain, etc., that went into German-occupied Europe and liberated these areas, that went into Asia and liberated the Chinese and the Koreans from the Japanese and freed these people from the oppression, the so-called oppression of the Germans, the Italians, and the Japanese, okay? It was the Americans and Soviet Union, primarily, that, quote-unquote, liberated the concentration camps, but yet for whatever reason, that generation feels really, really bad about ever judging anybody by by anything other than everybody's the same, everybody's equal, it doesn't matter what anybody does type of mindset. It all started in the quote-unquote greatest generation. As far as I'm concerned, that's a load of shit. People should be judged on their behavior. And they don't do that. What they've done is they've taken it to the point where if you judge somebody on their behavior, you're stereotyping. Okay? That's not right. So this is about the diffusion score, blah, 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 states, countries, and geographic distribution. It goes all over that. So in all but 8 states or state equivalents, so a state equivalent would be Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, Guam, these things, okay? The largest race or ethnic group for the population under 18 was white alone, non-Hispanic. So in all but 8 states. Now again, white alone, non-Hispanic includes Arabs, North Africans, Persians, as well as other people that may not identify as white. For example, okay, Italians. Some Italians don't even identify as white. Some Italians identify as Italian. Armenians sometimes don't identify as white. They might identify as Armenian. Okay? So you have to be aware that these classifications are very loosey-goosey here. So in Arizona, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, and Puerto Rico, Hispanic or Latino was the highest racial or ethnic group. The District of Columbia's largest race or ethnic group was Black or African American alone, non-Hispanic, and Hawaii's was multiracial, non-Hispanic. That is because, as people might know, Pacific Islander, that would be the indigenous people of Hawaii. They don't really exist anymore because they have been diffused out of existence by the addition of Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, Okinawan, etc. And I know people are saying, well, you can't, Okinawans are Japanese. Nah, they're different, and that's the truth. So Hispanic or Latino. Now what's funny is, because I do so much research into longevity and staying alive longer, when I first started learning about the Okinawan protocol, I had been curious as to whether or not, and I'm going to show this, the importance of food in the proper expression of genes later on, because you can't have a population where it's all nature and no nurture. Okay, you need that nurture, and that nurture is primarily nutrition. So I did a lot of research into Okinawans, right? So Okinawans, I thought maybe, just maybe, that the reason that these Okinawans live so damn long is a genetic thing. Maybe it's some kind of, they're a genetic miracle. Not true. When Okinawans move to Brazil or the United States or mainland Japan or wherever the hell they move, the life expectancy follows. The same is true for the Zulus. When the Zulus switch from the traditional Zulu diet to a more Western diet, they get chronic disease just like the South Africans do. When Hispanics become Americanized, they get sick just like Americans do. It really does follow what Weston Price showed, okay? That's not really hard to find. The more refined food, particularly refined carbohydrates, a population eats, the worse off their health is. So Hispanic or Latino in Puerto Rico, South Florida, blah, blah, blah. Number of counties by race. For the population under age 18, now what you have to understand, population under age 18, this is the who's going to be the prevailing voting class. Okay? So you're going to see a swift and hard demographic shift, which we've already seen. We've already seen that. That's one of the reasons people are like, well, Trump's going to win, Trump's going to win. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. He could have had a chance if he did half of what he said, but he didn't do what he said, did he? Okay, so the most prevalent race and ethnic group was Hispanic or Latino, Black or African American alone, non-Hispanic or American Indian and Alaskan Native alone, non-Hispanic. So, under 18, the predominant amount of people are Hispanic or Latino, Black or African, and non-Hispanic. There were 4 counties where the multiracial non-Hispanic population was the most prevalent. for the younger population and 0 counties where it was true for adults. For three race/ethnic groups, Hispanic, white, and non-Hispanic, and multiracial non-Hispanic, being second. Conversely, there were 857 counties where the second most prevalent group among the adult population was Black or African American. So this is going into the actual numbers here. The demography of diversity. Remember, I made those videos, Demography Matters. I encourage people to watch those videos. Okay, for blah, 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 there are many demographic and social changes that contribute to the racial and ethnic composition and diversity of the population. These include immigration, multiracial relationships, and that's what you're going to see a lot more of. So what people don't understand, this is what you don't grasp. When communication ensues, okay, you break down the barriers and start to humanize these other groups of people, and you will see a lot more multiracial relationships and a lot more change due to sexual selection. Trends in fertility and aging. These demographic trends appear to have impacted the racial and ethnic diversity of people under age 18 more than adults, blah, 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 blah. A lot of kids today are just choosing not to reproduce because of the democratic propaganda. You got to keep that in mind too, moving forward. So this is about human genetic admixture. So what you have to understand, one of the major insights from the modern genomic era is the ubiquity of migration and admixture through human history. This is what I mean. What people don't understand, people want to silence biological anthropology. They want to silence the reality of racial differences. Now, for me, reading and understanding human migration and population shifts and things like that, I personally think that if you truly understand biological anthropology, it is virtually impossible to be racist. Virtually impossible. People still manage it, but I think if anything, understanding racial differences and racial ebbs and flows and migration, whatnot, really helps people to understand the genetic diversity of the human race, okay? Or the human species, I should say. I don't want to say the human race because there are different races or breeds of human, just like there are different breeds of cats and different breeds of dogs. But the human species, the vast shifts in population are very interesting. Despite their ubiquity and importance, admixed populations remain understudied in population, blah, 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 and medical genetics. So, let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Human population movement frequently lacks historical records. Many migration events have occurred through colonization or forced displacement. And you're gonna see that in the United States. You are seeing that in the United States through what could be termed forced displacement. Okay, and ancient admixture often predates historical records. So there is, of course, ancient admixture. What many people don't understand is even in a population like Northern Europe or Western Europe, where everybody kind of looks alike, they're not alike. That's why when you get an ancestry test done, they can tell, is your family from Scandinavia or Germany or Ireland? They can tell that because of the genetic differences in those regions. There are unique subracial categories of the white race. Now, when I was a kid, what it meant to be white when I was a kid was that you were of Northern or Western European descent. Not Southern European and not even Eastern European descent. Northern and Western European descent. Okay? Period. Now, as I became an adolescent, It included Italians, Greeks, and other people like that. Spanish-speaking people sometimes were included, but very rarely. Then, when I became an adult, that's when you saw, an early adult, when I was like 17, 18, 19, that's when you see what you see now. So the mosaic ancestry patterns of admixed populations can be used to elucidate the mechanisms and timescales of evolution in humans more generally. For example, ancestry patterns in admixed populations have been used to infer recombination rates and to identify epistatically interacting blah, 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 blah. Here we highlight population history and demography, okay? And this goes over the demography shifts and whatnot throughout history. Again, you can read this on your own, but I do. So this is what's important here. Phenotypically important loci and regions. So when the genome changes, for the most part, the phenotype is going to change. So when the genotype changes, the phenotype is going to change. Selective pressures, such as those from environments and pathogens, play an important role in genetic variation and disease risk. Admixture. So what you got is, this is why genetic diversity is very important. It makes a population less susceptible to pathogens, generally speaking. Despite major progress on the theory and methods to study demography, essentially you're kind of playing the genetic lottery and hoping you win. But with modern science, we can fix the lottery so that we win most of the time, or maybe even all of the time. In admixed human populations, methodological advances in study other processes such as adaptation and phenotypic variation remains an open area with substantial room for growth. Now, when you throw epigenetics into the mix and things like nutrition, for things like the immune system and whatnot, you're really going to be helping to stack the deck in your favor. When you're adding things like quercetin and zinc and vitamin C at levels that are not possible to get in nature, you're helping to make yourself more pathogen resistant. And now we know that that is from an epigenetic stance, meaning that it is about gene expression. So admixed populations may provide pathways to studying genetic variation in populations that no longer even exist, such as many indigenous populations in the Americas. To say that indigenous populations in the Americas do not exist, see, this is the thing. Admixed populations are these populations. What do I mean by that? I mean that the genetic material from these populations was carried into future generations by the admixed population. Okay? So that's what people aren't understanding. People like to say that what I'm promoting is the destruction of white Western civilization. No. Number one, the United States is different from Europe, but more importantly, it's the preservation through the passing of the genetic lineage to the future generations. A common approach to identify candidate regions under selection post-admixture looks for outliers in local ancestry, blah, 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 blah. You can read this on your own. So this is about the impact of modern admixture on on archaic human ancestry and human populations. Admixture, okay, introduction. So admixture, or genetic merging of two or more parental lineages, has been demonstrated as an important contributor to modern human genetic variation. Now keep in mind, this has happened all throughout history. The Romans and the Britons mixed to create Britain, okay? You had Italian and Roman and British, Celtic, Anglo-Saxon, Jute, Pict, all these different people merge to become one people. Now, there is still a lot of genetic variance and a lot of genetic separation, even in a country as small as the UK. But it's important to understand that this has happened time and time again. If you look at China, it's happened with the Uyghurs and the Han and the da-da-da-da-da, okay? So many, and in Japan, the absorption of the Ainu into the greater Japanese population. Many of the genomes of contemporary individuals in the Americas are the result of various admixture. Okay, keep that in mind. So many of the genomes of contemporary individuals in the Americas are the result of various admixture events due to European colonization and the transatlantic slave trade, as well as continuous gene flow from a number of immigrant populations from across Europe, Africa, and Asia. Many modern humans show evidence of introgression, or incorporation of alleles from archaic humans like Neanderthals and Denisovans. Modern humans encountered both groups as they expanded out of Africa, and high-coverage genome sequencing of Denisovan and multiple Neanderthals has helped characterize the archaic variation that remains in modern human genomes. Neanderthal ancestry is also found in some North African populations, with Eurasian populations that are Denisovan ancestry, however, shows more varied distribution. Oceanians, meaning the people of Australia, New Zealand, etc., have far more Denisovan ancestry, up to 5%. And while South Asians and East Asians also have some Denisovan ancestry, European populations have very little. In some cases, so what you have to understand here, the biological reality of race, it's a biological reality, not a social construct, as we can see by this genetic research, is real. Denisovans and Neanderthals are not simply different breeds of human. These are completely different species of human. Keep that in mind. Selection favoring archaic variants to facilitate adaptation to novel environments in modern humans. Some candidate regions identified as adaptively introgressed include genes responsible for body fat distribution, high altitude adaptation, skin pigmentation, and innate immunity. Many of these adaptive archaic haplotypes are not found in all populations. One of the coolest things that was discovered is that the Andean people and the Tibetan people both have an ability to use oxygen more efficiently than non-Tibetan and non-Andean populations. Okay, like non-Andean Indians and non-Tibetan Asians, the Tibeto, whatever they call them. But it's a different genetic adaptation. It's not the same genetic adaptation. Very interesting. Moving forward. When we come back, I'll be talking about the genetic ancestry of African Americans, Latinos, and European Americans across the United States.